first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for giving your time. I appreciate the feedback you gave me in person when we met in Birmingham. Please share with those that don't know who you are a little bit about yourself, and obviously plug your books.
Oh, that's what I had to go and grab actually a few minutes ago. This is me. I'm Stefan. I'm the author of a couple of books, Business Networking for Dummies, my first one, and Instant Networking, my second one. And I'm very proud of those. And these days, I get the absolute pleasure of teaching people how to get more business out of networking. This is now what I actually do for a living. And for the last 10 years, I've been going to a lot of networking events, learning how to do it myself. And these days, I work with quite a lot of small businesses, and also I'm really flattered I work with some quite major businesses here in the UK. I work with one of the banks. I work with some big organisations for accountants and for lawyers and for all sorts of businesses. So it's yeah, life is good, and it's lovely to be talking to you.
Oh, it's great to be talking to you. Let me ask you, what has been the biggest benefit, your benefit of networking?
Hey, this is going to be really interesting because just as we were chatting just before we went live, I said that I've made a sale this morning, and I have. That's to someone who I've never actually met in person. So networking extending out to social media results now in a lot of sales for me. But do you know what? The biggest benefit of networking to me is that whether my day is going brilliantly or whether my day is going badly, I always have someone there. I have a load of friends and connections with different skills and different specialties, and I've always got someone I can call on. And I think being self-employed, running my own small business, the biggest benefit of networking for me has been those connections. So if I'm having a great day, I can tell people about it. If I'm having a rubbish day, I can reach out to people on privately. But yeah, the biggest benefit is just all of these connections all over the world who I count as friends. That's been the biggest one for me.
Let me ask you, maybe it's your mic that is hitting a I don't know, it's like a click. You don't hear the click?
Is that any better?
Maybe.
Is that better or worse?
No, it's good. It's good. It's good.
Cool.
It's good. So let me ask you, what is, I know you've been doing it for 10 years. So what is some of the problems and roadblocks that you see more often when it comes to networking? You know, whether it's, yeah, just what are some of the common problems and roadblocks that you see for people?
I think misunderstanding is the biggest one I see. It's almost as if when people first go networking, how do I explain this? When we go networking, we all go because we want to sell stuff. Ultimately, that's why we start going networking, because we want to sell stuff to the people in the room. The biggest roadblock I see is that people forget that everyone else goes networking because they want to sell stuff. There's not a room full of people waiting to buy from you. And as obvious as that seems, I think a load of people go networking expecting that everyone else is patiently sat there waiting to buy from them. And that creates some confusion. So one of the biggest roadblocks I see is people not thinking that through, that their approach to networking needs to be tailored to that. And their expectations to networking need to be tailored. I come across an awful lot of people who go networking 1 or 2 times and then say it didn't work for them because no one bought from them. And that is a real shame, because if their expectations had been set slightly differently, they would have given it a little bit more time and got the results that they deserve to get. So yeah, biggest roadblock is expectation. I think people expect that everyone is there to buy from them, and they go in with that approach. They go in trying to immediately sell to everyone.
So expectation, I'm going to make a note here to come back to that one. Networking, when I started on business a long time ago, networking was a big deal. You still, you know, show up, drop a business card in a bucket. That's still the is networking still relevant with today's age, in-person networking as it was 10 years ago?
That is the most common question I get asked, is networking still relevant in today's digital age? And with social media, do we still need to network? I think that you and I know each other better because we actually met and we actually shook hands and we actually got time to spend with each other eyeball to eyeball. I still think that humans need that human connection. All of this stuff, Facebook and LinkedIn and Instagram and Twitter and Snapchat and everywhere else, all of this stuff makes it easier for us to keep in touch these days. But I genuinely think that real life face-to-face networking is still enormously relevant. This is what I think, actually. I think social media and those contacts, they are hugely valuable in and of themselves. Networking in real life, meeting people in real life, that is hugely valuable in and of itself. I think when the two come together, when the two join up, when I meet you in Birmingham in England, and then we are able to keep in touch because of social media, I think that's where the real magic happens. That's where you can really speed up these relationships in a way that you wouldn't have been able to do even 5 years ago.
Got it.
That makes
Got
sense.
it. I was processing what you were saying, and it's all true. You and I met. I think you're a truly genuine person. And that's what it shocked me. Maybe it was about the expectation. You see somebody that is the author of a business, networking for dummies, and maybe I was expecting somebody, up like we say, oh, I'm better than you, but you are really a nice person. Do you think you were like that when you started, or you always be like that, or something that you learned with time that it's better to be nice to people? I don't know how to ask that question. What's your take on it?
I think I'm just me. I think that's the honest answer to that. Somewhere behind me up here, I can't find it straight away, but somewhere behind me up here, there's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, written by Dale Carnegie. And I read that book in about 1990. And although it confirmed sort of how I've always lived, I've always tried to live by what that book taught me. And I'm interested first in the other guy. That's just my approach to life, really. I think, what if we all just set out to get to know each other and not to sell to each other? I find these days that the more time I invest getting to know the other guy, finding out about them, being genuinely interested in them, then more people buy from me. And I'm not trying as hard to sell anymore. I think when I started, I was probably more of a salesperson than I feel that I am now. Quite often out of desperation more than anything. Money problems were one of the reasons I ended up launching my own business. But bizarrely, I ended up writing the book because I was so desperate I had to make networking work. And yet, the more I did of it, the more I realized that the less I tried to sell to people, the more that they would buy from me. And it's this real, what's the word I'm looking for? It's this real sort of interesting twist on networking, that you do need to sell, and it's perfectly okay to sell to the people that you meet. But the way that you do it, if you go in and full on and try and sell to people, you tend to push them away. And yet I go out there, I'm genuinely interested in other people. I try and find out what their problems are, what their challenges are. And then if I can help with that with one of my services, I'll offer that to people. But equally, what's wrong with just being friends for the sake of being friends? I meet a load of people at networking who never end up buying from me. And yet we just become great friends and great acquaintances along the way. And they enrich my life in other ways. And that, it sort of sounds a bit out there, a bit trite, but genuinely, the right people buy my stuff in the end. I don't have to try and force it. being genuinely interested in other people, here's the thing, being genuinely interested in other people takes more effort than most people are prepared to put in. And that's where I think I'm winning a lot of the time, because it requires tailoring my approach to every person that I meet, being genuinely interested in them. And something that I say in a lot of the presentations that I do, the real opportunity is that most people don't bother. The real opportunity is that most people wouldn't put in the effort to get to know Angel, to get to know you over time. And actually, I've not sold anything to you. I think you bought a book, correct myself. You've obviously bought my books. But I've not tried to sell you services, and yet we're still putting in the effort to be in touch with each other. And so many people, this is a very long answer, so many people who go networking only bother with the people who immediately want to buy from them. And I think that's a huge mistake. So yes, I am that guy. I am that guy who collects people, who collects relationships, and is interested in you. And I like being that guy as well.
So it's interesting. You mentioned that when you first started, and I think it happened to me, happened to a lot of people. We go with the mindset of trying to sell, but with time you change to be more interested on people. Do you think that was the biggest struggle you had when you first started, as far as like having that mindset of trying to sell people, or was it something different?
No, my biggest problem was that I'm naturally quite shy. And my biggest issue with networking was that I was nervous of walking into a room full of people, because I don't know if this translates. I was doing a similar conversation with some guys in Iran a couple of weeks ago, and it sort of translated over there. But the biggest piece of advice that English parents give to their children is don't talk to strangers. And we get told that every day. See, okay, so it does translate. We get told that every day for the first 12 or 13 years of our life. And then when we run our own business, or if we're working for someone else, we have to do this weird thing when we go out and have to talk to strangers. And we've been so conditioned not to, that I was genuinely very nervous about being out there. That was one of my biggest challenges when I first started going, learning to deal with those nerves. And it's odd that I now do this for a living, because I still get quite nervous walking into a room full of people who I don't know. These days it happens less and less often that I'm walking into a room of people who I genuinely don't know. Social media has really helped with that. But my biggest obstacle at first was being nervous, and sometimes not wanting to go to the event.
So at first and now, what's your biggest obstacle when it comes to networking?
Time. I'm in the really fortunate position now where I'm quite busy.
Okay.
I run my own events, and I get asked to speak at a lot of events. So this week is an example. I don't have any actual networking events booked in. I've got my own event this week, but I'm not doing any outside networking, and that's really unusual for me. But it's getting more and more usual, because I'm having to learn. And one thing that I have learned over the last couple of years is how to be incredibly efficient with my networking, because my biggest obstacle right now is time, having enough time to get out across the United Kingdom to different towns and cities and get to networking events.
Let me ask you, what is one game changer? If you have to share one game changer when it comes to networking, one thing that makes a big, huge difference when it comes to networking, expanding the inner circle, doing better relationship, like overall networking, what will be a game changer?
For me, the game changer was having a system, and actually realizing that it's not, there's nothing automated, but I think the game changer for me was living by a CRM system, so that whenever I meet anyone now, I get their details in there, and I do something. For some of the people, they might have expressed interest in one of my services, and of course I followed that up straight away. But for the vast majority of people who I meet who don't express interest in anything that I do, the game changer has been actively keeping in touch with all of them. So a networking event, they will always get some sort of follow-up from me, and it might just be, here's an email, lovely to meet you this morning, hey, I mentioned that video, I thought you might be interested in, here it is, or here's a book that I thought you might really benefit from. I'll always try and bring a tiny bit of value to the relationship. So the game changer, yes, was implementing a system to keep in touch with everyone. That doesn't sound very exciting or sexy. You probably hoped I had some clever thing that I say, but it was actually being systematic about the way that I approach this and making sure that I keep in touch with, literally these days, thousands of people. And that's been a game changer in terms of the deepening of my relationships, and also in sales, in the amount and the value of the sales that I make now, and enabled me, for example, last week to introduce a completely new service, but didn't struggle to sell the first few places for that service because I knew exactly in my inner circle who it would be great for, and they knew that if I approached them that I was being honest about it, and that helps as well.
You said that you create a system and you add, so basically to simplify, you meet people, you see a future in the relationship, you add them to a CRM, and you follow up every so often, whether the system is a weekly, a monthly, but you follow up frequently.
Yeah, it's more about following on than following up, in as much as our big friend, you know, the game changer that happened was social media. So social media allows me to keep in touch with people at massive scale. I can keep in touch with everyone. So instead of just following up, which suggests that, you know, they get an email from me inviting them to buy something, it's more about keeping in touch. I find for everyone I meet, I try and find where they exist on social media, which in 2017 is usually Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, or a combination of all three. And then I intend to keep in touch with them. Now, that keeping in touch might be as simple as liking and commenting on their posts every so often, sharing something that they've put out there. But that's the thing which enables me to keep in touch with people at enormous scale without making 100 phone calls every day, which I would need to do. Here's an interesting thing, right? Most of the people who buy from me never expressed an interest in buying from me the first time we met. So just being commercial about this, people buy from me because I frantically keep in touch, and then every so often I advertise my services to them. And sometimes it's just the right time for someone. Those people who never expressed an interest in buying from me, if I didn't keep in touch with them, I wouldn't make a tenth of the sales which I make at the moment.
What CRM do you use?
Sorry, I missed the question then. I lost you for a second.
Oh, what CRM do you use?
Interesting one. I use a CRM system called Sales Radar. The reason that I use Sales Radar is that I've met them networking. These guys are based in Birmingham in England. They are newish to the market. They actually sponsor me. They sponsor the networking retreat these days. I met the guys at networking events. They were just bringing their new CRM to market. I liked it. I liked everything that it did, and I decided to work with them. So there's a really interesting and unexpected benefit of networking. I got to meet these guys, and now because their system is really good, I'm very happy to talk about their system and recommend it.
Definitely. Before I keep asking you a few questions, are you ever about networking? Are you ever coming up to the US to do a speech or a talk or a training?
I've put it out there to the universe as my intent. I speak now in front of really big audiences in the UK. I went from the biggest audience I'd spoken to was about 500 people, and then earlier this year I spoke to 2,400 people at an event in January. But that's all been in England, Scotland, or Wales. I have put out to the universe this real intent that I would love to speak in Europe, I would love to speak in the US, and I would love to speak in any other country. I'm not yet an international speaker, but it's something that I would really like to do, yes.
Let's see, maybe in the future we have you here in Florida.
I would love to. I would love to. I know that my good friend Brad Burton is coming out to Florida real soon, actually.
Yeah, he's coming I thought he said the 22nd, so Tuesday, maybe?
I think something like that.
22nd, he's going, or something like that. He's going to be throughout September. So hopefully I can steal him for a little bit. I know he wants to go shooting.
But so if he grabs the international market before I do, no, there's no competition between us. But I would really love to crack the international market. Yes, of course, it's something I want to do.
Okay, so when you and I met, I told you that I was moving to Florida, and I asked you for a couple quick tips to get me started on networking locally. You know, you said Google events, the basic data, they sound basic thinking about it. So hearing that helped me to get started. Would you mind sharing like a couple steps, a real strategy for somebody that is busy, an entrepreneur that is busy, married and with kids, that might not be able to afford going to 4 networking events a week?
Yeah. I think a load of tips that I've got for networking, if I'm understanding if I'm understanding this correctly, my tip would be to make your networking more efficient. If you can only get to 1 networking event a week, that's absolutely fine, but put the effort in to keep in touch with those people when you're not there. That's the thing that speeds up the relationships. Now, in England, I don't know if this translates, but one of the best places to start in England is what's called the local Chamber of Commerce or Chamber of Trade. And even if they don't organise networking events themselves, they typically know where the local networking events are. So if that translates to Florida, they're a great place to start to just meet other local business people and get to know them. But if you only can get to 1 event a week or 1 event a fortnight, then make sure that you put the effort in between to keep in touch with those people, which may be through social media, it may be through having one-to-ones with them outside the event, but just keep those relationships going. It's you who's got to be in charge of pushing those relationships, because everyone else is busy too. So take the responsibility upon yourself to keep that stuff going.
Okay, so I have time to go 1 event a week. What is the number 1 thing I must have when going to an event?
You must have a really clear idea of what you're selling, and it really intrigues me how quite a lot of people don't know what they actually sell. And this might even be a conversation for another time, for a longer expanded time. People need to get clear about what it is they offer and how to translate that in ways that people will understand. It's not about an elevator pitch. I've got a problem with elevator pitches, but it is about when someone asks you that question, what do you do? Being able to clearly answer it when you've had a conversation with someone, also knowing what happens next, how you're going to follow the conversation on. A load of people go networking with any really clear idea of what their service looks like to describe it to other people, and what are the next steps to working with them. And it's that lack of preparation which I think sometimes lets people down. Get prepared. Know what to say when people ask you what you're going to do. Know what to say if you've got to do a 60-second introduction or a 40-second introduction, but get that preparation done so that you're not making it up all the time. I used to think that was the way to do it, but actually being efficient with your time, knowing how to describe what you do and how to be interested in other people, that takes a bit of preparation along the way.
Talking about preparation, do you train, can people hire you to improve their introduction, the answer, the what is that you do question?
Oh, of course I do. Yeah. I mean, I work with people. If someone's close to me, like an hour's drive away, I work with them one-to-one, but I work with people by Skype as well. I work with a load of people on that basis. It's really interesting getting the 60-second or 40-second introduction right. That doesn't take much time at all. I'm blessed with an affinity with words. I know how to help people describe what they do. That's a big part of what I do. I think what people are often surprised about is that even if we just focus on their introduction, one of the things that I'll always talk to them about is helping them to get a system in place to follow up as well, because helping people to present themselves better, even at a networking audience, yes, that's what I do a load of, but I always make sure that people understand that that's not the end of it. The introduction at a networking event is just the start of the conversation, and then we need stuff in place to keep the conversation going. But yeah, I work with people all over the UK, and here's a thing, okay? I can work with people by Skype, of course, anywhere in the world, and I've not actively promoted it outside the UK, but of course, whether your audience would be
we need to start doing that. We need to fix that, Stefan. We need to fix that. But you know, maybe like would you see any, like, I don't know, when you said that haven't actively promoted, the first thing that came out to my mind was like, why not hold like a summit, like a group event where everybody comes and pitch and Stefan pimp their pitch. I don't know, just have you ever thought about doing like a big group event where people pay a fee and they all jump, they have 10 minutes to go like a roundabout? I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, see, I'm at my best when I'm at my best in group situations. I run in the UK, I run this event called the Networking Retreat where 12 people come to me. I also run my mastermind group, which has 12 members. I quite like 12. And I work with that sort of dynamic, that number of people really, really well. I've never tried to translate that online. For someone who's been using social media for 10 years now, I'm probably quite behind in that respect. I like working with people face to face, and I haven't made the jump online myself yet to work on. That's interesting.
I think that's a future conversation for you and I. Maybe we can make something happen and promote the heck out of it and see if we can get 12 people to jump online and you can help them improve their speech. I think that's a future conversation. Let me see, business cards. So a foreign meeting, my first one when I went to Birmingham, and I was shocked. It wasn't spending, being exposed to networking in the US first, and then seeing how you do it differently in foreign networking. I was happy. I felt like home. It was like I felt like friends. But one thing that caught my attention was still business cards. Do you think business cards still have a place?
Yes,
in today's.
Yeah, I do. No matter how. I mean, I've got apps on my phone which scan business cards. I think the place that they have is cultural. They're not necessary anymore from any real. What's the word I'm looking for? From any real efficiency point of view, because we've all got our address books on our phones. I'm talking to you on my phone. I have plenty of apps to scan in business cards. So once I've met someone, I'll point my phone at their business card and it puts their details straight into my CRM. But I think business cards are still culturally very important, at least in England. I don't know whether that translates across the whole world. No matter how many times people have invented apps which act as virtual business cards, we still like to give and receive those little pieces of card. I don't know if that will ever change in future, but with all of the opportunities for it to change with virtual business cards, it hasn't done yet. We still seem to like actually the physical piece of card. It's a cultural thing more than a necessity.
Should you have a specific business card, maybe with an offer or maybe with a call to action for networking events, or your typical Angel Anderson marketing advisor, phone number, website? You know, the typical business card is still the thing to pass in networking events.
Yes, it's always worked for me. I don't have a specific business card for networking events. I don't put a call to action on business cards because that makes a presumption. Although I do have my website, I do have all of my social links on business cards. Things that should have happened but didn't quite work, things like QR codes never really took off in the way that they could have done. There's been plenty of ways of business cards being slightly more effective that have never quite worked. People just still seem to like an actual business card with your telephone number and your website address and your email address on it. People still seem very, very tight to that, really.
Let me ask you, because you run your networking events, what is a good use of business cards when you're running a networking event? When let's say I invite a few people, what can I do with the business cards that will be fun, or that will I don't know, what exercise, what can I use the business cards for in the business besides just passing it around, especially if I'm running the event?
So in for networking, we have the one-to-ones where everyone swaps free business cards and has a one-to-one with the other person with the corresponding business card. The other thing which I see a lot of is business cards get put in a box and passed around the table so everyone collects them. There's plenty of things that you can do. The one-to-ones work very well. Passing the business cards around the table so everyone gets them works very well. Something that I would say in 2017, it's really worthwhile having your photo headshot on a business card, because that really helps people to remember you. But again, no matter how many novel ways we come up of doing it, people still just like to pass the card and keep the card. One thing which don't ever do, just because you've got someone's business card because they gave it to you at an event or you picked it up at an event, it's not an invitation just to put people straight onto your mailing list. A load of people do that, and that isn't the right thing to do. People didn't ask to go straight onto. Oh, people do all the time.
It's true. So you mentioned the one-to-one. Just for those in the US, because for networking is not in the US. Maybe it will be in the future, but maybe not. What can you break down the 3 business cards? How if anybody wants to use the same framework, what would you can you share that framework?
Yeah, of course I can. Of course I can share it. What happens at for networking is that you get 3 business cards. Everyone in the room takes 3 of their business cards. They number them, so they actually write on them number 1, number 2, and number 3, and then they swap their number 1 with someone else's one-to-one, their number 2 with someone else's number 2, and so on, so that everyone ends up with 3 short conversations with other people in the room. Because once you've swapped your number 1 business card with someone else, you then go and have a 10-minute conversation with that person, and then you move on to your number 2, and then you move on to your number 3. So actually, during the networking event, as well as standing up and pitching yourself for 60 seconds, you also get an opportunity to actually talk to other people for 10 minutes. And that just deepens the relationship very quickly. You can talk about what you like, but most people talk about their businesses and just get to know each other a little bit better. So that really works. For networking will come to the US at some point, I'm sure. I know that BNI are huge in the US, and that's where Ivan Meisner started BNI. For networking will be out there soon, I reckon.
The length of so you swap 3 business cards, and you said that each person speaks for 10 minutes. Is each number 3 all 3 for 10 minutes long?
Yeah, everyone meets for 10 minutes. So you chat between the 2 of you for 10 minutes, often ask about each other's businesses, find out what each other's challenges are. And just get to know each other a little bit better. What I do, here's a hint about this. If I think that there is something in that conversation, if I think that that conversation should be carried on, then I ask permission towards the end of that 10 minutes. I ask permission if I can follow up with the other person. And on the basis that most of us carry our diaries around with us all the time now, I try and make a second appointment with that person to maybe meet with them or speak to them on the phone and just keep the conversation going afterwards.
Interesting. So you tell the person that you want to follow up, and then you make the second appointment. That way, I'm assuming, so they are expecting your email or the follow-up message. That's interesting. I think that's something worth talking. Now, let me ask you, Stefan. Recently, I saw you start uploading some more videos to YouTube. Is that helping you, or are you ready to launch something that I'm not aware? A new book is coming, or is that for networking?
No, it's not about me promoting anything, but it is about the more video content I put out there, the more people buy from me. Now, here's something, and people around me know this, but just to share it with your audience, because I know it will resonate with some of them as well. I'm not very comfortable doing video. I don't like to look at myself on video. I don't like to hear my accents. This is a West Oxfordshire accent, by the way. And it takes me quite a lot of getting over that to do videos. However, the more I do videos, the more videos I put onto into my Facebook group and YouTube, I get calls from people and I get bookings to either speak or for people to work with me. And one of the things that people say is that there's so much video of me out there that they feel that they know me. So particularly with speaking engagements, there are professional videos of me speaking on stage. There's a few of those out there now. But also there's quite a lot of video, as you'll have spotted often, of me walking, and I'm talking straight to the camera, or maybe I'm in my car. Something that happens is that I'll go to a networking event, I will get inspiration from someone in the room. That's another benefit I get from networking. Someone will have done something and I'll think that's clever, or someone will have done something and I'll think I could have done that better. I'll give some general advice to the world by putting it out there on video. And I can come straight out of the networking event and go straight to my iPhone, just record a short video and upload it much quicker than it would take me to write a blog or an article. That's what I'm doing more of. I'm not doing this just because I'm launching something. I'm doing this because genuinely it brings me closer and closer to my audience, and it seems to speed up that process where people trust me, because somehow I can write something down, I can type something, and I can get my point across. I'm very good at writing, but somehow if I do it straight to video, people trust you more, people react to it more. And I've put a couple of videos on LinkedIn recently that have really got a load of attention.
Yeah, I'm going to look at your LinkedIn profile, Stefan, just to see that video. I think I tell my local clients that if you're going to create content, you might as well create it on video. I think people connect better with you on video, your personal brand. Plus, if you're, it helps your personal brand. Plus, if you don't have a lot of time, you record a video, and the video can be transcribed and used for the blog post, and the screenshots can be used for social media images, and the snippets can be used for social media posts. You can create slide decks from it. So I think video is the way to go. You create one effort and go from there. Let me ask you one last question. One last question, and then I saw some questions coming up on the chat, so I will read them to you. But one last question. One thing that I wasn't expecting from networking here in Florida was intentionally, but I start clicking with a lot of influential people that were big, people that know a lot of the right people, and all of a sudden I'm being introduced to bigger. bigger clients and better clients, and things are really good. How can we do that? I did it without being intentional, but I think it's a value to it. How can we be intentional on looking for influential people without being fake?
And you've hit it in the last few words, because it's almost as though you need to have an intent. However, I'm going to refer back to How to Win Friends and Influence People. Some of my biggest introductions have come from what you might describe as the smallest people, and I don't like to describe them like that, because I've made a habit of talking to everyone, and I talk to the people who everyone else walks past because they don't think they're important enough. And one of the things that's really intrigued me is that how, by speaking to everyone, I got introduced to a head of department at a major UK bank. How, in speaking to everyone, I get to speak to the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, a very old-fashioned English institution. How, by speaking to everyone, I get to speak in front of 2,400 people. And it's almost like it's okay to have the intent, but don't just go out there and just try and speak to the people you think are important. That's not what you've done, I know, but I'm advising your audience that the getting in front of the big businesses is about dealing with the small businesses. Getting the huge audiences is about being humble enough to deal with the little audiences in the first place. And go out there, do your thing, make sure you are really, really brilliant at what you do, and you put every effort into what you do, and then you'll get those breaks. You'll get those breaks where people will introduce you to the right people. But if you set out in the first place and just say, I only want to speak to the big guy, and ignore the little guys along the way, you will fall over with that approach. That's never been my approach. I've never just gone out to speak to the guy who is responsible for a training budget in a bank, but I end up being invited to speak to those people along the way. I think all of the things that we've talked about, giving before you receive, being prepared to put yourself out there, getting out of my comfort zone and putting video out there, all of that sort of thing has added up. Creating a shed load of content is really important as well, so that people can share your stuff after they've met you. All of this stuff will get you closer to those influential people. And these days, I seem to have become an influential person myself, which again, I'm very flattered about. And people seem to want to meet me these days, which is incredibly humbling. It really is.
It's been amazing. I really appreciate an amazing time. I really appreciate your time here. Let me say, for those who will watch the video, and before we jump to the question real quick, I mentioned at the beginning that I bought the 2 books, and I read things that caught my attention. But one thing that made a big difference immediately was the introduction, and it's the framework. And I created a video about it. I don't know if you've seen it, but I created a video about it, and I have it here, and I write in my books. I don't give them out, they stay with me. I write. And I think you use this one, maybe you can give me an insight, but the title was of the paragraph, an introduction to Sell to the Room. And you have 6 points. This is who I am. This is what I do. This is how I do it. This is what someone else has said about me. This is what you need to do next. For me, moving here was, I think, one of the things that made the biggest difference. I looked at that paragraph and I'm like, okay, I'm going to refine my introduction. Saw that framework, I click, and it forced me to think again what I was doing. But sometimes, so I think sometimes we tend to use too big of a words when describing our services. What's your take on that? What was the last feedback you can give me on that framework that I just mentioned from your book?
It's really important. People do tend to try and over-explain it. When they do their 60-second or 40-second introduction, what people should remember is that all you're trying to do is give the people who are listening enough that they want to find out more about you. You're not trying to tell them everything. I can't remember whether you know this, but for the first 20 years of my career, I was what we in the UK call an estate agent, what you would call a real estate agent or realtor. And we would advertise in our local paper every week. For 20 years, we advertised in our local newspaper every week. The point of our advert was to give people just enough that they wanted to pick up the phone or come into our estate agency office and talk to us. The point of and this is the whole point of the framework which I've put together, the point of your introduction at a networking event is to give people enough that they want to take the relationship further, that they think, wow, that's interesting, I need to talk to that guy. What so many people do is put so much into their 60 seconds that anyone else in the room can think, that's cool, I know what he does, I don't need to talk to him now. You're aiming to stop short of telling people everything about you. You're aiming to just give people enough that they want to find out more. Just give people enough that they're really interested in what you do and want to keep the conversation going. The introduction is the start of the conversation. It's not intended to be the whole of the conversation. Use it to get people interested in you. There you go. I get quite excited about that because you can make such a difference by getting that right.
For those that watch the video all the way to the end, what will be one call to action that you can provide, that you can give them for them to start networking or improve their networking? What's one call to action will you get that you can share?
Do you know, it's all right to be you. I think a load of us go networking, and whether it's from nerves or this belief that we have to fit in and be corporate or professional, it's all right to go out there and be you, and the right people will be attracted to you. I think if there's any call to action, it's get yourself prepared before you go to a networking event. You'll feel so much better. Write down your 60 seconds if you're going to be nervous, or even record it into your phone and listen to it back. But get that preparation done. Go out there, be you, allow people to get to know you, and at first treat it as a medium or long-term strategy. Networking isn't likely to make you sales in the first week, although it does for a load of people. It's perfectly possible to speed up the process, but at first treat it as slightly medium to long-term. Take the pressure off yourself. You don't have to sell at this networking event. The sales will happen if you just go out there and be you, let people get to know you.
Perfect. Before we answer the questions in the chat, where can people find more about you? Where, social media, where can they buy your books?
In terms of the books, you'll find them on Amazon.com. Just search for me, Stefan Thomas. You'll find my books on Amazon, or search for either of them, Business Networking for Dummies or Instant Networking. They're both there, and they're available internationally. In terms of me, connect with me. I welcome connections on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter. I'm there either under my name, Stefan Thomas, or by my old Twitter handle, No Red Braces. But go and search for me and you'll find me. I really do welcome connections from people. I run a free Facebook group where we have a very international audience. I talk about networking in there a lot. That's called the Networking Retreat, so people can check that out as well. But as you would expect, and as goes with my personal brand, I'm really easy to find on social media. So just go and check me out. LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, or anyone else, and you'll find me there as well. And I love to welcome new people.
I will add the links. And if you want, I can add the links to the Facebook group. That way people can find it and share it. So here's, let's see, one question. Let's see. Somebody asked about affiliate marketing, but that's a different conversation. It's about affiliate marketing. Well, I'll scroll here. Let's see. So here's one. Any way to start networking? Any books? So definitely, my advice. I know he's not gonna say definitely.
Oh,
I'm looking for the instant networking, Steph.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's so many books which I would recommend to people. There's my books, Instant Networking and Business Networking for Dummies. There is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. It's not about networking, but it's a brilliant book. If anyone's nervous, that book, you can tell.
What's the title again?
This book, Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway by Susan Jeffers. And you can tell with these books, you can see with these couple of books how long I've owned them and how battered they are because I've read them so many times. But yeah, do get my books, obviously. But Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway is a great book for anyone to read. How to Win Friends and Influence People is a fantastic book that everyone in business should read, whether you're self-employed, a business owner, in network marketing, in affiliate marketing. Everyone should read How to Win Friends and Influence People. That truly is an absolute masterpiece. But yeah, start with that.
Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it. I will definitely add all your links so people can find you, and I will once a day I edit the beginning and at the end. I will share the video with everybody. Really appreciate your insight. Hopefully we meet in person again. And thank you, Steph.
Hey, thank you for having me on. Just so that you guys know, wherever you're watching in the world, this is Oxford in England in the summer. It's raining and it's cold. It's been great to spend a few minutes talking to you guys. Thanks for having me.